That battered bottle cap can beat the polished $20 crankbait sitting proudly beside it inside my tackle tray. I laughed when Grandpa handed me his homemade lure because serious tackle should not resemble roadside garbage. On our first trip, he caught 5 bass while my premium crankbait harvested weeds and damaged my dignity. My lure carried perfect paint, balanced hardware, internal rattles, and absolutely no interest from anything with gills. By lunchtime, Grandpa had stopped smiling politely and started offering advice I clearly deserved but barely appreciated. Grandpa never bragged about that score, which somehow made losing to recycled trash considerably harder for me. 5 bass against 0 settled the argument more effectively than any laboratory test or glossy advertising claim could. That ugly little cap had exposed something expensive tackle sometimes hides beneath flawless paint and clever packaging. Price was not the advantage, and Grandpa had not discovered some mysterious alloy known only to old fishermen. The lure worked because its reflection broke unevenly, its vibration felt rough, and its forward motion occasionally hesitated. Pressured bass had already inspected hundreds of smooth crankbaits following the same polished, predictable path through familiar water. I had spent years removing imperfect movement from custom lures, never considering that imperfection could become useful. The cap looked recognizable enough to follow, then suddenly behaved like injured prey, losing control near cover. Nothing about that movement was random, although my first copies certainly produced enough random spinning to embarrass everyone. Its crooked path gave following fish a brief opportunity that appeared vulnerable, unfamiliar, and too convenient to ignore. And the feature creating that reaction is probably the part most builders would immediately straighten or remove. I'm Arthur Boone, but every guide, mechanic, and dock regular I know simply calls me Artie. For 25 years, I have guided anglers across reservoirs, rivers, farm ponds, weed beds, and stubborn weather. 15 of those years also disappeared inside my tackle shop, building lures and obsessing over microscopic adjustments. A lure leaving my bench gets tested for balance, tracking, hook clearance, knot wear, vibration, and sound. Some national tournament competitors quietly fish my painted crankbaits, then develop remarkable amnesia whenever television cameras arrive. Funny enough, Grandpa needed no airbrush, testing tank, or organized drawer labeled experimental brass components to humble me. I understand what makes polished tackle swim correctly, which is precisely why his crooked creation bothered me. Grandpa understood something better. Fish do not reward craftsmanship unless that craftsmanship produces a believable moment of weakness. You will see every component, exact proportion, connection point, and adjustment needed to build this lure reliably. I'll show which bottle caps survive hard strikes and which rusty candidates belong permanently inside the recycling bin. We'll choose a hook that lands base without making the lightweight body drag sideways or wobble weakly. I'll explain why the metal strip must swing freely, yet cannot overwhelm the cap with constant noise. You'll also see how centered attachment holes can coexist with a body that remains deliberately uneven underwater. I'll demonstrate the strength check that protects your line, your fingers, and the fish you finally hook. My early version failed every one of those tests, but it did spin beautifully enough to frighten bluegill. By the finish, yours will hunt unpredictably without becoming useless hardware rotating behind your fishing line. The first major mistake happens before the hook. Split rings or scrap metal insert ever touch the cap. Most builders flatten it completely, believing a smooth spoon shape must create cleaner, more professional underwater movement. I did exactly that, then proudly presented Grandpa with a shiny lure that had forgotten how to hunt. He pulled it through the shallows once, handed it back, and asked why I had killed it. The center needs some dome, while opposite edges receive enough pressure to form a shallow, crooked body. That retained curve catches water unevenly, producing broad vibration without forcing the lure into uncontrolled, continuous rolling. Too little bend creates dead metal, while too much turns your fishing line into twisted telephone cord. I'll show where that narrow working range begins because guessing with pliers usually ends in unnecessary corrections. Testing matters because 2 nearly identical caps can behave completely differently after one tiny bend near the nose. We will pull the finished lure through a bucket, bathtub, or shoreline shallows before sacrificing valuable fishing time. I'll show the difference between productive wandering, harmless wobble, sideways dragging, and the unmistakable disaster of continuous spinning. When one prototype rolled badly, I corrected it with confidence and transformed a small problem into modern sculpture. The proper adjustments are often barely visible, sometimes measuring roughly a millimeter at the attachment hole or leading edge. You will learn what to bend, which direction to move it, and when your hands should stop. That final decision matters, because conventional lure tuning encourages removing every movement that refuses to repeat perfectly. Here, one recoverable mistake is not tolerated. It is preserved as the central trigger fish actually attack. Hardware still matters, even when the finished lure looks like something swept from beneath an old workbench. Cheap split rings can open, sharp burrs can cut line, and weakened steel can tear during a strike. I learned the split ring lesson beside the boat while a largemouth escaped wearing my hook like expensive jewelry. We'll prevent that embarrassment with clean steel, smooth holes, strong connections, and hardware matched to the cap. I'll explain treble and single hook choices for open water, grass, panfish, walleye, and snag-filled river cover. You'll see why oversized snaps smother the wobble and why heavy hooks pull the lure permanently off balance. We will also inspect every load-bearing point before casting, because homemade never needs to mean unreliable or careless. A strange action should come from intentional shaping, not from components quietly approaching mechanical failure under tension. Building the lure is only half the job, because careless retrieval can erase everything created at the bench. Reel too quickly, and the cap rolls. Pull mechanically, and its most convincing hesitation disappears completely. Grandpa used slow turns, one sharp interruption, and a pause that made impatient fishermen visibly uncomfortable beside him. I copied his rhythm before understanding how the insert swings, contacts the cap once, then becomes suddenly silent. That silence matters because a following base sees the target stall immediately after its balance appears compromised. I once accelerated after spotting a follower, proving that 25 years of experience cannot always defeat excitement. Grandpa would stop instead, letting the lure hang there until the fish either committed or exposed its refusal. I'll break that retrieve into repeatable movements, including the small restart where many of the hardest strikes happen. This is not a claim that bottle caps always outperform premium crankbaits across every depth and fishing condition. It is a practical tool for shallow cover, pressured water, current seams, grass edges, docks, and overlooked targets. My expensive lures still earn their space, although Grandpa's cap permanently removed their right to act superior. You'll leave knowing how to build, tune, test, strengthen, and retrieve this odd little fish catcher. More importantly, you'll understand which crooked movement attracts fish and which crooked movement only twists your line. Every step has a reason, and each correction connects directly to something the lure communicates underwater. Set the polished crankbait aside, keep your safety glasses nearby, and place one clean steel cap on the bench. Whatever you do next, do not flatten the ugliest feature, because that supposed flaw makes pressured fish commit. That preserved flaw only becomes useful when your hands give it enough water, restraint, and silence to work. Cast beyond the target, lower your rod tip, and reel slowly enough to feel that uneven pulse. After 6 or 7 handle turns, stop briefly and let the cap flutter instead of sinking lifelessly. The loose insert swings independently, throws a second flash, and usually touches the cap with one quiet click. Bass commonly eat during that pause, while perch and crappie often strike when the lure starts moving again. Keep your grip relaxed, because the first warning may feel like somebody lightly tapping your fishing line. I taught clients this crawl first, mainly because enthusiasm turns homemade lures into miniature underwater ceiling fans. Change each pause slightly because repeated timing makes an unfamiliar target predictable, defeating its most valuable advantage. Grandpa's productive cadence was simpler. 3 slow handle turns, 1 sharp twitch, then approximately 2 seconds motionless. Those turns establish helpless forward movement, while the twitch releases the crooked sideways kick we carefully preserved earlier. During the pause, the cap settles, the insert swings forward, and metal may contact metal exactly once. That click suggests collision or distress, while the silence afterward makes the target appear confused and temporarily helpless. But where does the strike usually happen? During the twitch, throughout the pause, or immediately after either one? Surprisingly, The gentlest restart catches more followers than the loud twitch that originally brought them into view. Barely turn the handle, restoring only enough wobble to suggest weakened prey attempting one uncertain recovery movement. Grandpa stopped beneath followers. I accelerated, watched them vanish, and learned that experience never completely cures impatience. Over shallow reservoir grass, keep the lure roughly 18 inches high and pause whenever its vibration suddenly weakens. That missing pulse could mean vegetation touched the hook or a largemouth quietly inhaled everything from behind. Snap softly to clear grass, then freeze, creating a burst and stall that frequently draws another attack. Around rocky points, lift the rod slightly and slow down, keeping exposed hooks away from narrow crevices. Smallmouth love crooked caps crossing river seams, where competing currents make their struggling movement look especially convincing. Cast slightly upstream, retrieve only loose line, and let current hold the lure beside productive boulders longer. After 25 guiding seasons, I trust one controlled pass near good structure over 10 beautiful casts nowhere. Docks, farm pond stumps, grass edges, and current breaks all reward patience without changing Grandpa's fundamental cadence. For evening walleye over gravel, install a sharp-sized 2-inline single and extend pauses 3 seconds. 4 seconds sometimes works better, but restart gently because following walleye dislike sudden acceleration near their faces. Pike respond to stronger flash and quicker movement, although a short wire leader remains non-negotiable around teeth. For bluegill and crappie, use miniature caps, tiny hooks, and narrow inserts cut from lightweight brass. Panfish often strike during the restart, so avoid snapping the rod when that tiny weight suddenly appears. I once watched a crappie reject 3 commercial spoons before crushing my ugliest miniature bottle cap experiment. Has anyone here built homemade tackle that embarrassed expensive gear during one trip? Tell me below. Those victories teach better lessons than shopping receipts, although our first instinct afterward is usually making everything prettier. Pause before reaching for chrome paint, because the obvious cosmetic improvement can quietly reduce this lure's effectiveness. Scratched metal throws broken reflections through every wobble, fall, and kick, rather than broadcasting one uniform beacon. Under bright skies and shallow water, smooth chrome can overwhelm pressured bass before they approach striking distance. In matched afternoon testing, Grandpa's faded cap caught nearly twice as many pressured bass as my polished version. I now blacken one side with permanent marker, leaving the opposite face unfinished for alternating flash and disappearance. Add one red mark near the hook, choose chartreuse for mud, but black, brown, or bare metal for clarity. Never coat the insert's contact point and apply scent sparingly because thick gel restricts its independent swing. Reducing attraction from 50 feet can increase commitment inside 5, something tackle store packaging rarely explains honestly. Match that restrained finish with a medium-light, moderate-action rod that loads smoothly without tearing those thin attachment holes. Choose a slower reel, because high-speed gearing encourages nervous hands to overpower the cap's delicate wandering rhythm. With braid, loosen your drag since nearly zero stretch transfers every surge directly into punched steel. Monofilament adds forgiveness and helps the lure ride higher during slow passes above shallow grass beds. Fluorocarbon sinks more readily, suiting gravel points where smallmouth and walleye commonly hold closer to bottom. Inside my tackle laboratory, line choice gets tested as obsessively as paint, sound, hook clearance, and tracking. After rock contact, inspect the knot because a rotating cap can rub against already damaged leader material. Proper equipment does not make Grandpa's lure sophisticated, it simply lets deliberate imperfections survive the fish it fools. Continuous spinning means excessive curvature, miscentered holes, or an insert too large for the cap's resistance. Constant sideways dragging usually exposes an uneven front hole, damaged split ring, or excessively heavy hook. Silence means the insert is trapped, whereas non-stop clattering means that metal strip is too long or wide. Short strikes often improve when you shorten the insert slightly, revealing more hook while preserving trailing flash. When followers refuse, reduce speed and alter pause duration before changing a single mark of color. I wasted years repainting prototypes while my impatient hands remained the actual defective component above the water. Make corrections in tiny increments, test again, and stop once the lure kicks occasionally without rolling completely. That checklist separates productive crookedness from ordinary malfunction faster than blaming weather, pressure, moon phases, or educated fish. My strongest proof arrived during hot, clear summer water when conventional presentations had completely stopped producing. Two skilled clients rotated premium crankbaits, jerkbaits, and soft plastics around docks where largemouth visibly remained stationed. Desperation persuaded me to tie Grandpa's battered cap, which was cheaper than admitting professional defeat before lunch. The first cast drew a follower, but I accelerated near the boat and watched that fish turn away. Next cast, I made 3 slow turns, twitched once, then endured Grandpa's maddening 2-second pause. The insert clicked, the cap drifted sideways, and everything disappeared beneath a swirl smaller than my dinner plate. That largemouth weighed 5 pounds, 14 ounces, with the ridiculous cap lodged neatly inside its upper jaw. My client stopped requesting professional tackle and immediately began searching every compartment aboard my boat for spare caps. The lure succeeds because familiar flash earns attention, while one controlled mistake creates an opportunity fish cannot safely postpone. Its kick attracts, its pause unsettles, and that fragile restart finally confirms something vulnerable enough to attack. Grandpa understood this without specialized tools, underwater cameras, acoustic charts, or drawers organized with embarrassing precision. Build carefully, preserve some crookedness, and remember that silence between clicks matters more than cosmetic perfection. Next time, I'll demonstrate how one hook angle change can revive lures you nearly discarded without spoiling it here. If this project saves tackle money, subscribe, tap like, and suggest another forgotten workshop material for transformation. Picture that scratched cap wobbling beside a stump while a polished crankbait waits untouched inside the box. Sometimes the best lure is not hanging inside a store, it is waiting quietly underneath your workbench.